This story begins with Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi having to survive against a horde of strange zombie-like residents on their school rooftop. While struggling to defend themselves, Rei is nearly caught by the horde, but Hisashi steps in, saving Rei from danger. As they approach the top platform, Takashi starts thinking hard. How could he suddenly be trapped in a world resembling The Walking Dead? We're shown a time before this chaos began, when Takashi was alone, reminiscing about his love for Rei. Back then, Rei had once promised to marry him, but everything changed. As they grew older, Rei's heart shifted, and she left him. Takashi's life took a drastic turn when a pink-haired girl named Takagi suddenly appeared and scolded him for frequently skipping class. Although Takashi tried to remain as cool as possible, like Spike Spiegel, Takagi kept reprimanding him. As Takashi tried to absorb this new life full of danger, he saw a strange man running and crashing hard into the main gate. At the same time, Kyoko and some of her loyal Twitch fans arrived, with one of them trying to act boldly to catch her attention. Unfortunately, his attempt ended tragically when the man bit his arm, causing him to die on the spot, leaving everyone in fear. As they approached him, the man suddenly got up and bit Kyoko with surprising enthusiasm, making Takashi panic and rush back to his classroom. Once he got there, Takashi immediately looked for Rei and asked her to come with him. Takashi informed Hisashi that some people had died at the school's main gate. Rei, acting tough, tried to ignore Takashi's warning, only to receive a hard slap that brought her back to reality. Now Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi had to prepare to face a real nightmare, the zombie apocalypse. Thinking quickly, Takashi broke a broom to make a makeshift weapon. Meanwhile, Rei tried to call her father, who was a police officer, for help. However, her face turned pale when she found the line was busy, a bad sign that the situation outside the school might be even worse than they imagined. Just then, an emergency announcement came over the school speakers, warning everyone of the danger and asking them to evacuate. But suddenly, the announcer screamed in terror before the voice cut off, leaving the school in a state of panic. The announcer's scream added to the tension, making the usually relaxed students as scared as panicked NPCs. Chalk fell to the floor, and the atmosphere in the school became chaotic. Our trio, Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi, tried to find their way to the administration building to avoid the crowds. On the way, they encountered their first zombie. Though hesitant at first, Rei finally unleashed her martial arts skills, kicking the zombie with full force. Unfortunately, even after being stabbed right in the heart, the zombie rose again and turned its attack on Rei, leaving her cornered. Hisashi tried to help, but was bitten on his arm, forcing Rei to call for Takashi's help, saying, "This is our only chance to survive." Takashi, driven by survival instincts, struck the zombie's head with the stick until it shattered. Then, the three of them continued toward the rooftop. From there, they were shocked to see the city outside looking like something out of Alice in Borderland, with military helicopters flying low, signaling how serious the situation had become. The school was no longer the usual place for learning. It was filled with students either dead or wandering aimlessly as zombies. Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi realized that the only way to deal with these creatures was by destroying their heads. But before they could catch their breath, classmates they once knew approached with staggering steps, pale faces, as if they wanted to copy homework. Or perhaps something far scarier. After fending off waves of zombies, Takashi and his team managed to take shelter on the upper floor. They quickly blocked the stairs to prevent zombies below from climbing up. At that point, Hisashi started feeling severe pain from the bite he'd received earlier. With a pale face, Hisashi asked Takashi to end his suffering before he turned into one of them. Takashi, initially unable to go through with it, held back. But seeing Hisashi's pain worsen, his heart broke. When Hisashi finally lost his life and rose as a zombie, Takashi was forced to swing his weapon and end his friend's suffering. Elsewhere in the school, Takagi was running down the hall with a chubby bookworm by her side. Takagi was focused on survival, while the bookworm was more concerned with finding a teacher to report the chaos. However, Takagi managed to make him realize they needed to fight together instead of relying on others. Back on the rooftop, Takashi and Rei were still mourning the loss of Hisashi, though this was only the beginning of all the chaos. Trying to cope with their grief, they decided to try calling Rei's father using Takashi's phone. This time, the call connected, but Rei's voice barely came through due to poor reception. Her father managed only to tell them that the city was in major panic before the call was cut off, leaving Rei even more anxious. In the hallway, Hirano asked Takagi if they should contact the police for help. Takagi just shook her head, saying that if Hirano had ever watched a zombie movie, he'd know the police wouldn't be much help in a situation like this. After explaining they'd have to fight on their own, they continued walking, with Takagi sighing in slight annoyance at having to be with this thick-headed guy. Meanwhile, Kazu was in another hallway, facing a zombie and managing to take it down with a pole. Beside him, Shizuka was calmly gathering medical supplies and assessing the situation. When Kazu urged her to leave, Shizuka insisted on waiting to gather more healing items first. Suddenly, a zombie crashed through the window and bit Kazu, leaving Shizuka frozen in disbelief. At that critical moment, a girl with a sword appeared, swiftly taking out all the nearby zombies. She introduced herself as Siko and praised Kazu for his efforts to protect Shizuka. Gently, Siko informed Kazu of what would happen to him now that he had been bitten and offered to end his suffering right then and there. Not wanting to turn into a zombie, Kazu asked Siko to finish it. In the tool room, Takagi and Hirano were inspecting equipment they could use to survive. They eventually found a nail gun that could serve as a ranged weapon, giving them a bit of hope amid this terrifying situation. As zombies started knocking on the door like kids asking for candy on Halloween, Hirano quickly improvised, creating an emergency nail gun to hold them back. As his plan worked, Hirano transformed from the bullied bookworm into a confident hero. Meanwhile, Takashi and Rei were working together, using a high-pressure water pump to knock down zombies. After sharing intense moments and exchanging looks of mutual understanding, they moved forward together, taking down zombies one by one as if they were born for this. When the situation was somewhat under control, they decided to go downstairs, and Takashi suggested they head to his house, hoping to find other survivors there. Rei considered calling to check if her family was home, but Takashi reminded her that her father was out of town, and her mother was teaching at an elementary school. Though he tried to stay calm, Takashi couldn't hide his worry, especially after witnessing the state of their school. On the other side, Takagi tried a unique approach by throwing a wet tissue at a zombie, and realized that they didn't respond to touch. It seemed that all of the zombies' senses were dead, except for their hearing, which still reacted to sound. As Takagi and Hirano were surrounded by zombies, Shizuka and Siko rushed toward the teacher's lounge to look for car keys. Along the way, Siko noticed that Shizuka's tight outfit wasn't ideal for running, giving everyone an unavoidable fan service moment. Back downstairs, Hirano was starting to run out of nails for his weapon, and as the zombies closed in, Takagi shouted loudly to draw their attention. Quickly, Takagi tried throwing a trophy at a zombie, but it didn't work. Finally, Takagi pulled out a drill and with full courage drilled it into the zombie's head. At just the right moment, Takashi and Siko showed up to help, and together they all prepared to face the next threat, feeling braver and more solid as a team. After defeating the zombies, Rei and Shizuka immediately went to check on Takagi, who still looked shaken. Siko introduced herself to Takashi, but Takagi felt frustrated seeing them act normal after the horror they had just survived. Unable to hold back, Takagi yelled, her voice echoing through the school hall, reminding everyone that the situation was far from over, and might get even worse. They then gathered in front of the TV to watch a news report showing the destruction across the city. The report ended dramatically as the reporter was attacked by zombies, helplessly becoming a victim on camera. Takashi, frustrated by the lack of clear information from the news channel, muttered about the importance of withheld news. However, Takagi assured him it might be done on purpose to prevent mass panic. The news also revealed that the outbreak had spread across much of North America, with White House personnel even moved to an aircraft carrier. Speculation arose that the government might consider extreme actions, like a nuclear strike. Realizing the scale of this global outbreak, the group could only stand in silence. Just this morning, everything had felt normal. Rei, still holding on to the hope that things would get better soon, voiced her naive optimism, but Takagi scolded her, reminding them about past outbreaks that nearly brought humanity to the brink of extinction. When they wondered how previous outbreaks had ended, Shizuka explained that, eventually, outbreaks stop when there are no more humans left to spread the disease. Shizuka added that these zombies might start decaying in about 20 days, but Takagi was skeptical. She thought that concept might not apply here, as these zombies were technically still alive. Finally, Shizuka suggested they work together and rescue more survivors to increase their chances of survival. With a unanimous decision, they realized that the quickest way out was through the main door. Their small group marched toward the hall, taking out a few zombies along the way, and arrived at the inner gate. Siko and Takagi, the geniuses of the group, warned everyone to avoid unnecessary fights and try not to make any noise. Soon after, they spotted another group of survivors surrounded by zombies, and without hesitation, they moved to rescue them. After the rescue mission was complete, Takashi decided to test the hypothesis that zombies might not be able to see them. Although Rei asked him not to act recklessly, Takashi fearlessly stood among the horde of zombies. One of the zombies passed right by without noticing him, and Takashi threw his shoe at the wall to draw their attention, allowing the others to walk quietly through the gate. Unfortunately, one of the survivors with them made a sound and drew the zombies' attention, causing them to be surrounded again. Although this situation posed a new obstacle, they didn't give up and managed to move forward. However, one of the students they had saved earlier got trapped and was attacked by zombies in the process. Eventually, they found an old-looking SUV. While Shizuka tried to figure out how to start the vehicle, they saw Professor Shido from Class 3A approaching with his students, looking out of breath and terrified. As Takashi stepped out to help, Rei urged him to leave the man behind, but Takashi ignored her. Takashi helped some people move forward until Shido came across someone who had fallen right in front of him. With a sneer, Shido whispered, "Only the strong survive," and without hesitation, Shido stepped over the man, pressing his foot on the person's face as he walked calmly toward the SUV. With the remaining courage, Shizuka stepped on the gas and plowed through the crowd of zombies, successfully getting them out of the school grounds. Once they were safe on the road, Shido, with his know-it-all attitude, immediately suggested choosing a leader for their survival. Rei could only sigh and tell Takashi that one day he'd regret saving Shido. As they passed through the ruined city, some of the survivors, who seemed only to add to the burden, began arguing over the route to take. The tension in the SUV grew, and Shizuka, trying to focus on driving, finally begged them to be quiet. Everyone fell silent upon seeing Shizuka's serious expression. However, the tension rose again when one of them suddenly pointed at Takashi for no apparent reason, which eventually led Rei to step in and calm the situation. Shido seized this moment to once again push the idea of the importance of leadership, even suggesting himself as the leader, reasoning that he was a teacher. With grand promises like a politician, Shido managed to gather support from a few easily influenced people, eventually declaring himself their leader. Rei, fed up with the situation, immediately chose to get out of the SUV. Takashi followed her, urging her to stay calm at least until they reached the city. As Rei scolded Takashi for saving Shido despite her warnings, suddenly, a bus filled with zombies sped up and crashed into the side of the SUV. As the dust began to settle, they realized the tunnel ahead was now blocked by the bus, and from the shadows, another horde of burning zombies emerged. Takashi and Rei were separated from the group, but they managed to inform Siko that they would meet at the Easter police station at 7 p.m. While the SUV took a different route, Takashi and Rei exited the collapsed tunnel, only to be attacked by a zombie riding a motorcycle. In that tense situation, Rei managed to save Takashi by knocking down the zombie rider, and the two quickly hurried on their way to the Easter police station. Since Takashi couldn't walk much farther, they decided to take the zombie's still-functioning motorcycle to reach their destination faster. Meanwhile, Siko and her group were stuck in traffic as police began firing at the approaching zombies. Some of the girls who were picky started to panic at the sound of gunfire, and Shido quickly took advantage of this opportunity to assert his leadership once again. On the other side, Takashi and Rei continued riding through the abandoned city. They eventually arrived at Takashi's neighborhood and found it eerily silent, as if it had been completely deserted. When they spotted a parked police car, they immediately checked it, and discovered that the driver was already dead. After searching inside the car, they managed to find a fully loaded revolver and some extra bullets that could come in handy later. They then headed to a gas station, but unfortunately, Takashi didn't have any money for fuel. When Rei scolded him for spending his cash on drinks earlier, Takashi just grumbled, sarcastically remarking that he wasn't as rich as her now-deceased boyfriend. He went into the shop to search for cash and, inside, smashed a table with the baseball bat he was carrying. Takashi heard a scream from outside and quickly rushed back. It turned out that Rei was being held hostage by a man who looked like a thug, smugly patting her cheek. As the man got bolder, he demanded that Takashi drop his weapon and fill up his gas tank immediately. Using his wits, Takashi instead threw his bat to the ground, drawing the attention of nearby zombies toward them. While filling the gas, Takashi pleaded with the man to let them go, saying they needed to meet their parents soon. The thug laughed, saying their parents were probably already gone, and ordered Takashi to move his butt faster. Waiting for the right moment, Takashi finally managed to shoot the man in the shoulder, giving Rei a chance to break free. Though Rei wanted to take revenge, Takashi held her back, reminding her that the area was now overrun with zombies. As they left, the man eventually became zombie food. In Tokyo, two pilots were preparing for takeoff, but the runway was swarming with zombies. Not far from there, a man directed a hunter to the target location and gave her the green light to start shooting. With incredible precision, the woman cleared all the zombies off the runway, allowing the plane to be ready for takeoff. The man wondered aloud how all these people managed to reach the airport, considering there was only one route to the place, and that was by boat. The woman, wiping sweat from her forehead, explained that essential personnel and technicians for the airport had been brought there. Although some of them were infected, thanks to their teamwork, the situation at the airport was under control. As the plane began to take off, the woman decided to head into the city, planning to visit a friend. In the SUV, Shido was once again giving a long lecture on how to handle this situation and keep all the survivors safe. Meanwhile, Hirano, who had been sleeping soundly, was woken up by Takagi, who informed him they were still stuck in traffic. At that moment, Takagi saw the plane flying overhead and guessed that many people would try to move to areas with lower populations and better access to ammunition to survive against the zombies. Hirano mentioned Okinawa as a good place, while Takagi suggested Hokkaido and Kyushu as strong options too. However, Takagi realized that those places might already have strict defenses and wouldn't let anyone in easily. While Takagi and Hirano discussed their chances of survival, Shido, on the other hand, was busy flirting with the girls on the bus. When Takagi grumbled about their situation, Takagi muttered, "If only Takashi were here, things would be easier." Hirano secretly suspected there was a crush on Takashi. Meanwhile, Takashi and Rei faced chaos on the road, where rival groups were sparking small riots. Takashi seemed to transform into a ghostly rider, driving through flaming streets in epic style. As they were chased by people, Takashi casually explained to Rei that this was a world where rules and laws no longer existed. People were now revealing their wildest sides. Takashi and Rei then found a bridge filled with cars stuck in traffic and hordes of zombies ready to attack. Thinking quickly, Takashi chose to find another route. On the bridge, police were trying their best to hold back the zombies, even setting up checkpoints to make sure no one crossed without inspection. But there was a group of reckless teens who insisted on crossing the barricade, forcing the police to shoot water cannons at them. In the SUV, Shido used the opportunity to influence his sympathizers and tried to turn them against Takashi and Rei. The main group started to worry about how much sway Shido had over some girls with family issues. Siko then suggested it might be better if they left the bus and continued on foot to meet up with Takashi sooner, making Takagi a bit jealous. As the conversation continued, Siko mentioned that her family, especially her father, was overseas. This sparked a discussion among the team members, each sharing stories about their families, creating a moment of togetherness amid the chaos. When they finally reached the Anbetsu Bridge, Shido tried to position himself as the main figure in the group. Takagi, who couldn't stand Shido's style, immediately mocked him, saying they were free to leave anytime, except for Dr. Shizuka, whom they deemed essential for their survival. Hirano, unable to hold back, pointed a nail gun at Shido as a warning to back off, reminding Shido of all the insults he had thrown. Hirano emphasized that he had held back all this time to fit in, but now, in a world filled with zombies, he was free to do whatever he wanted, even embrace his wild side. Hirano's boldness not only impressed Siko but also eased the tension in the SUV, leaving Shido feeling embarrassed. Meanwhile, Takashi and Rei struggled to find an escape route as the other bridges were in similar conditions. However, they heard the sound of nail gun shots, realizing that Hirano and his team were fighting off zombies on the bridge. Relying on his gamer instincts, Takashi decided to pull off a GTA-style jump with their vehicle to land directly on the bridge. Upon arrival, Rei quickly rushed to help the girls, while Takashi handed his revolver to Hirano so he could take out the remaining zombies. Once the bridge was cleared of zombies, the two teams finally reunited and started discussing their situation. It turned out that all exits from the city were completely blocked, leaving them in a thrilling deadlock. After considering the idea of crossing the river by swimming, they ultimately decided it was too risky due to the high water levels. Shizuka took charge and suggested a nearby place to stay for the night. When they curiously asked if it belonged to her boyfriend, Shizuka quickly denied it, explaining that it was her female friend's house. She added that her friend was often busy with work, rarely using the place, and had given Shizuka a spare key to keep it maintained. Since Shizuka had described the place so nicely, Takashi invited her for a walk around the area. When they arrived, the girls headed straight to the bathroom, enjoying a relaxing shower after a tension-filled day. Meanwhile, Takashi and Hirano started exploring the lockers in the place and found stacks of advanced weapons and neatly organized ammunition. Hirano was really excited to find heavy-duty rifles and deadly shotguns among the collection of weapons, making them wonder who Shizuka's friend really was. Takashi hoped he wouldn't have to use these weapons on anyone, but Hirano looked eager to use them on zombies for practice. As they were loading the weapons, Hirano shared that he had been to America and received firearms training from an expert who used to work for a private military company. Their conversation continued about how illegal it was to own such weapons in their country, which further fueled their suspicion that Shizuka's friend might be someone high up. Additionally, this place felt too luxurious for the salary of a regular female police officer. This added to their belief that Shizuka's friend was someone with significant connections. Then, Takashi used binoculars to observe the bridge, still tightly guarded by the police with barricades. The residents looked increasingly impatient, and the police began to appear tense, worried that the lockdown situation would spark unrest. At the same time, the local police chief received orders from his superior to use any means necessary to maintain order. When Hirano saw a news reporter at the bridge, he immediately turned on the TV and saw the crowd beginning to protest the lockdown. It turned out that people were becoming more convinced that the pandemic was the result of a biological weapon leak jointly developed by Japan and America. Takashi and Hirano exchanged glances, a bit doubtful of the claim, but the situation at the bridge was heating up as more zombies appeared near the barricade. The protest leader took advantage of this moment to incite the crowd to fight against the police. The officer in charge immediately issued a warning, but when the leader ignored it, the police chief ultimately shot him, quelling the riot with a single shot. Meanwhile, in the apartment, the girls had just finished showering, and Shizuka was starving, joking about wanting to enjoy some sausages. Takashi, still being gentle, made sure that Shizuka and Rei slept soundly. However, Rei still looked uneasy, worried because she hadn't been able to contact her parents. Later that night, Takashi arrived in the kitchen and found Siko looking relaxed, wearing only an apron while wiping a bit of blood stain. The sight made Takashi's heart race. But before things got any more awkward, Rei called him upstairs and started talking about her ex-boyfriend, Hisashi, who used to be so kind. Takashi, feeling the need to show himself as a true protector, gently reminded her that Hisashi was gone and that he was now responsible for protecting Rei. Rei finally noticed Takashi's bravery and gave him a sweet signal he couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, at the bridge, the police chief, fed up with the zombie invasion, sent a bulldozer to clear the zombies and protect the other side of the bridge. However, his harsh decision left him overwhelmed with guilt, leading him to take his own life. Back at the apartment, things between Takashi and Rei were getting warmer, but suddenly they heard a dog barking outside. The noise attracted many zombies to their area, making Takashi realize they couldn't leave this place without a fight. When Siko heard gunshots, she joined Takashi and Hirano to check the situation outside. They saw an armed man trying to hold his ground, but he was eventually overwhelmed by the zombies. Takashi, wanting to show his leadership, planned to attack the zombies, but Siko quickly reminded him that fighting back would only attract more zombies toward them. Siko decided to turn off all the lights to avoid drawing attention, handed binoculars to Takashi, and advised him not to act recklessly. On the balcony, Takashi scanned the surroundings and spotted a man with his daughter looking for a place to hide. They approached the house and pleaded with the occupants to open the door. However, when the door remained closed, the man threatened to break it down with a wrench. Unfortunately, this confrontation ended tragically when the man was stabbed with an improvised spear, leaving the little girl without her father. In his final moments, the man asked his daughter to find a safe place. But as he took his last breath, the girl hugged his body and began to cry. Her sobs attracted the attention of the zombies, and Takashi and Hirano couldn't just stand by as an innocent girl was in danger. With a fighting spirit, Hirano started shooting at the zombies like he was back in a Call of Duty server, while Takashi rushed out of the apartment to save the little girl. On the way, Takashi ran into Rei, who wanted to join, but Siko asked Rei to let Takashi do his job. Takashi promised he'd handle everything, and Rei handed him a gun as backup in case things went south. As soon as Takashi started the motorcycle, the zombies were drawn to him. At full speed, Takashi rode past them, while Hirano provided covering fire from behind. Finally, Takashi reached the girl, but a slipped bike made the situation even more complicated. Takashi found the little girl curled up in a corner, guarded by a dog. Without hesitation, he started slashing the approaching zombies to rescue her. This drew all the zombies toward him, giving his friends in the apartment a chance to escape. But they knew they needed to save Takashi first. Meanwhile, the little girl began to feel a bit safer, allowing her a moment to grieve for her father, who fought to protect her. Back at the apartment, the girls gathered all the weapons and loaded them into a military jeep. Takashi asked the little girl to sit tight and wait for his friends to arrive. However, when he saw dozens of zombies gathering outside, Takashi decided to use a wall as cover. Just then, his team arrived with the jeep, blasting through the zombies nearby. Takashi swiftly jumped into the jeep, completing his mission to save the girl. Meanwhile, on an aircraft carrier, the U.S. Presidential Council urged a man to give the green light for nuclear weapon use. As the president considered his decision, the council leader, who had previously been bitten, began to turn into a zombie, forcing the guards to shoot him. Elsewhere, the team crossed the river while Hirano and the little girl, Arisu, sang a song to relieve the tension. When they finally arrived on the other side, strangely, the area was deserted. As the girls prepared themselves, Hirano updated Takashi on Arisu's situation, believing she had lost her mother too and now only had them. They also rescued the dog from the previous city and decided to name him Zeke, inspired by Pacific War history. Hirano then handed a rifle to Takashi, teaching him how to shoot and reload it. Just as the lesson ended, they were surprised to see all the women dressed up and armed, looking like characters from The Walking Dead. Rei then announced they would head down the road to gather supplies and asked the guys to take the lead and cover them. After the guys ensured the street was clear, Shizuka carefully drove the jeep onto the road, while Takagi used binoculars to scan the surroundings, which were filled with signs of death and destruction. Takashi, a bit puzzled by the situation, suggested they head to Takagi's house, the closest place from where they were. During the trip, Takashi started feeling uneasy. He hadn't seen a helicopter or plane in the sky all day. Rei, trying to calm him down, told him to focus on the positives, like the fact that they hadn't encountered a single zombie on the way. Feeling slightly reassured, Takashi fell asleep peacefully, only to be woken up by Hirano warning that zombies were appearing on the road. Shizuka took a different route to avoid them, but unfortunately, zombies were swarming that area too. As they drove past the group of zombies, Rei wondered why the creatures were gathered there alone. In a flash, Siko realized the situation and told Shizuka to brake, but it was too late, and the vehicle hit a cable lying across the road. Shizuka struggled to reverse the car and slam on the brakes, but unfortunately for Rei, she was thrown off the roof and landed hard on the concrete. As zombies began creeping toward her, Takashi sprang into action, trying to protect her with the rifle. With guidance from Hirano, Takashi managed to take down several zombies, but soon ran out of bullets and couldn't reload. At that moment, Siko stepped in, giving Takashi a chance to regroup. But instead of reloading his rifle, Takashi took the gun strapped to Rei and used her body as a brace to aim the rifle at the approaching zombies' heads. When Hirano also ran out of bullets, he asked Arisu to grab more ammo, and seeing her innocent face gave him the strength to keep fighting. When Takashi's car wouldn't start, Takagi decided to join the action, grabbing a rifle to make herself useful. However, after a while of struggling, their ammo began running low while zombies kept coming in greater numbers. In this increasingly tense situation, Takashi and Siko took the initiative to use themselves as bait to draw the zombies away from the area, though the plan didn't go as smoothly as expected. Now trapped and surrounded, Hirano tried to lift Arisu over to the other side of the barricade so at least she could escape. But when they realized they were the last ones left there, Arisu started begging not to be left alone. Just then, a group of people arrived with high-pressure water guns, saving them from the zombie threat. Among the group, Takashi saw Takagi's mother, who looked thrilled to reunite with her daughter. After taking a moment to catch their breath, Takashi and Siko felt relieved to see their friends safe. However, their troubles weren't completely over, as they still had to find a way back to the other side of the barricade. Despite the tense atmosphere, Takagi shouted that she would be waiting for them at her house. Feeling a new sense of determination, Takashi decided to push forward. Eventually, they spotted Takagi's house in the distance, situated high up, which encouraged them to look for a vehicle at a nearby showroom. Once there, Siko noticed a jeep that looked like it could drive over water. The two agreed to give it a try. As they drove close to the river, zombies suddenly started tumbling down behind them, making them realize that zombies couldn't walk down stairs or slopes. Despite falling, the zombies proved quite resilient, getting back up as if nothing happened. To escape the zombies, Takashi decided to steer the jeep into the water, which left Siko even more soaked than when she first got splashed. Fortunately, after some time, the zombies gave up the chase, and the two were able to drive the jeep onto a sand dune, where they decided to rest for a moment. Siko felt cold from all the water splashed on her, so Takashi helped dry her off, trying not to make her feel even wetter. After changing into a black t-shirt, Takashi, who was calm at first, got a little too enthusiastic and suddenly asked if Siko had ever dated anyone before. When Siko mentioned she liked someone, Takashi's excitement dropped faster than a heavy person sitting down too quickly. After the zombies scattered, Siko suggested they continue down the road and reach Takagi's house before nightfall. However, as they drove further, they realized that goal might be out of reach unless the number of zombies around them decreased. Takashi then encouraged Siko to lure the zombies into the park while he tried to sneak through quietly. With no reason to hold back, Siko was determined to show Takashi how impressive she could be. But even though she was confident, Siko was horrified when she saw zombie children wandering around. As she stood frozen, Takashi stepped forward and fired his gun, taking down the zombies. Naturally, the sound of gunfire attracted every nearby zombie in their direction. After rushing away, the two took shelter at a temple, where Takashi checked their surroundings. Siko stayed silent, thinking it might be best not to push him, so they decided to spend the night at the temple. When night fell, Takashi explored the temple and found a real katana, then returned Siko's dry uniform to her. After Siko changed into a dress she found, Takashi discovered a portable toilet in the temple, which made him chuckle. Once Siko started feeling better, she began to open up to Takashi about her true feelings. She admitted that it wasn't the zombie children that froze her, but rather Takashi's question about dating experiences. Siko explained that she was just an ordinary girl who had fallen in love with an ordinary guy, but the sad thing was that she never dared to confess her feelings. She felt she had no right to tell the guy how she felt because she had nearly taken someone's life. 4 years ago, Siko was attacked on the street and managed to shatter her attacker's shoulder blade with her wooden sword. Takashi pointed out that she was only defending herself, but Siko admitted she enjoyed inflicting pain on the man. From the start, she knew she had the upper hand and used it to her advantage, feeling satisfaction after hitting him. The man had called her a crazy woman who liked to control others' lives, saying that someone like her didn't deserve to be loved. Takashi, who really needed encouragement, tried to share his experience, saying he'd also been through a lot of horrific things. However, the difference was that he did all of it after the pandemic, while Siko had been a crazy woman for a long time. When Siko revealed that her condition worsened after the pandemic began, Takashi took the chance to spend the night patting her cheek. The next day, they both acted as if nothing had happened and got ready to leave the temple. However, a horde of zombies suddenly appeared outside, leaving Takashi confused about how they'd gotten there when they hadn't made any noise the night before. He saw Siko still hesitant to fight, so he tried to boost her spirit with self-acceptance and the real katana. Siko then started slicing through the zombies and seemed to enjoy it. As they continued on their way down, it was clear that Siko wanted to wipe out every zombie if given the chance. After arriving at Takagi's house, the group finally got to enjoy their first normal days since the pandemic began. Meanwhile, Shizuka gave Rei some medication, as her back had been hurt by concrete. Rei was quite annoyed with Takashi, complaining that her chest hurt because Takashi had used it as a pillow. When Takashi was kicked out of her room, he saw two people lifting heavy boxes and wanted to help them. As they chatted, Siko appeared in a cute dress, and the two shared a sweet moment. Just then, Arisu and Zeke arrived, with Arisa sharing how Shizuka had taken care of her since they'd arrived. While they were enjoying the conversation, they heard Takagi shouting upstairs, and Takashi quickly went to check, finding that Takagi had just argued with her mother. When Takagi's mother, Yuriko, appeared, Takashi mentioned that he was already used to Takagi's mischievous behavior, as they had been friends since kindergarten, and he complimented the large house they lived in. Yuriko also revealed that this was her first time visiting the house, as she'd been intimidated by the guards outside. Meanwhile, Hirano was in the garage working on something when Takagi appeared and told him to enjoy the time while he could, as they wouldn't be staying long. When Hirano asked why, Takagi explained that it was difficult to maintain electricity and water in a place this big. Takashi then learned from Yuriko that the SDF commander had sent his troops to the power plant on his own accord to ensure the country didn't lose its power supply. However, the people working there would only stay for a limited time before eventually returning to their families, which was why they couldn't stay in the house forever. Back in the basement, Mr. Mato scolded Hirano for messing around with his weapon, but Takagi told him to get moving quickly. Before they left, Mr. Mato revealed that the workers had prepared their vehicle and were ready to continue the journey. Hirano was impressed by the influence Takagi held in this house, but Takagi was frustrated by the fact that adults thought they knew more about the world than they did. When Takagi planned to talk to Takashi, Yuriko also asked Takashi to make her daughter understand. Then, Takagi gathered everyone in a room and asked if they should continue working as a group or not. Takagi explained that they had joined with another group, and the only choice they had was to expand or split up. Takashi felt it would be better to stay with Takagi's parents because they seemed to know what they were doing. However, that was exactly what annoyed him. When Takashi politely asked her not to speak poorly about her parents, Takagi snapped at him. She vented her frustration, saying her parents acted drastically to protect themselves but never truly cared about their daughter, as if Takagi wouldn't survive. Hearing Takagi rant like a child, Takashi felt the need to remind her how lucky she was to still see her parents alive and well, unlike so many others. However, seeing her eyes starting to tear up, overwhelmed by the harsh treatment, Takagi quickly pulled herself together and returned to the topic. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a car outside and decided to check it out. Takagi's father, Soichiro, had just arrived. He showed everyone his best friend, who had now turned into a zombie, and shared that he'd lost many people trying to save his own life. Although his friend was no longer human, Soichiro felt obligated to honor his friend's memory. This became a lesson for all of them that no matter how close you are, once one of you turns into a zombie, there's no choice but to end it without hesitation. After Soichiro left, Hirano began to regret the inefficiency of a Japanese katana, which could break upon hitting bone. Although Siko mentioned that it depended on who wielded the sword, Hirano felt uneasy taking that risk. This caused tension within the group. However, Arisa decided to step in and smooth things over between Hirano and Takashi. Takashi felt they'd become too relaxed in Takagi's home. It reminded him of an 8th grade lesson where his teacher spoke about a British military ship arriving in Tahiti after a long voyage. After 6 months in that paradise, a mutiny broke out among the crew, who had grown used to the easy life there. Takashi couldn't help but compare their situation to that, realizing the world outside was far harsher and more dangerous than life inside the mansion. Suddenly, Arisa came running, informing them that Hirano was in trouble and they needed to help him immediately. Meanwhile, Saya found Siko sitting by the pool, admiring the beautiful koi fish. As they discussed the possibility of splitting the group, Hirano found himself captured by the guards while attempting to escape with some weapons. At that moment, Soichiro appeared and questioned why Hirano was fleeing with weapons. Hirano responded that the weapons made him feel like a brave Jaga Chad. Shortly afterward, Takashi arrived and explained that Hirano had been using those weapons to protect Takagi since the pandemic began. Soon after, the original group members showed up to support a confused Hirano. Finally, Takagi gathered the courage to confront her father, declaring that Hirano had done what he should have, protected her. Then, Takagi gathered the residents and informed them that the dead were walking out there. However, the community seemed unwilling to believe it, thinking it was just some kind of infection being exaggerated. Seeing their reaction, Takagi asserted her authority and firmly told them to follow her orders if they wanted to survive. She reminded them of what happened to her father's best friend, a real-life example proving the severity of the situation. In the crowd, a woman who didn't seem to think things through commented that the Takagi family was just trying to control them through fear. When Takashi stepped forward to explain, he was told to step back because he was seen as just a high school kid. The crowd started protesting, claiming they wouldn't be affected by the violence. At the same time, Takagi, Takashi, and Hirano began discussing the absurdity of these people. Hirano then mentioned that it's human nature to deny tragedy, and this reminded Takashi of the times when he didn't believe he had lost, as Hisashi had pointed out. This is why people refuse to believe what they see, even when it's right in front of them. Somehow, this conversation led Takagi and Hirano to support Takashi as their leader. Meanwhile, Soichiro recognized his talent and gave Siko a rare legendary sword, Morizaki, which was said to never get scratched, even when splitting a pig's skull in two. When Siko refused to use the sword without a valid reason, Soichiro explained that he had once been trained by Master Bushijima, who just so happened to be Siko's father. Soichiro wanted Siko to have the sword and give it to her father as a token of gratitude. He asked Siko to hand it directly to her father, laughing at her innocence. After chatting briefly about her father, Siko asked Soichiro if she should give the sword to their leader, Takashi. However, according to Soichiro, Takashi wasn't a worthy leader because he was still uncertain. Meanwhile, Takashi was sitting in his room, doubting himself, when Rei appeared and began reminding him of all the heroic acts he had done. However, Takashi felt that Siko, Hirano, and himself were the true heroes, while he was just standing on the sidelines. On the other hand, Takagi was the brains of the group, and Shizuka played the role of the doctor. Rei leaned on Takashi's shoulder and reminded him of all the moments when Takashi had risked his life to save others, making her want to get a pat on the back from him. Takashi said, "I'll understand if you don't feel the same," expressing regret for leaving him in such a low state when they were about to go on a mission. Rei's back hurt from a previous accident, so she decided to postpone the plan. As Rei left the room, she found Siko waiting outside. Meanwhile, an SUV arrived outside the mansion, and the girl in the car begged the guards to let her in. The guards seemed enchanted, looking at her chest. However, they all had no idea that this was part of Shido's sneaky plan to save himself. Inside the mansion, Takashi was briefing Soichiro on the situation with their parents. As Takashi was getting ready to leave, Rei saw Shido enter the mansion and hurried downstairs to slap his butt, pretending to be the angel who had saved so many students. Shido started expressing his frustrations about his father, who was a politician and only brought suffering to his family. Shido even had to take his wife to places for entertainment, and at the same time, Shido felt like his father was using him for revenge by making him repeat a class. This was one of the reasons why Shido and Takashi had drifted apart. At that moment, Rei appeared with a rifle, wanting to punish Shido, not only for making him repeat the class but also for making his father's life difficult. Rei had always known that Shido was the one responsible, but Rei kept quiet, hoping that Shido would get caught if the investigation went well. However, with the world already in ruins, Rei didn't care anymore and wanted revenge. At that moment, Soichiro appeared and told Rei to settle things with Shido, saying that Rei didn't need to maintain a good relationship with his father anymore. Takashi felt confused and wanted to stop all of this, but Siko reminded him that this was a choice Rei had to make for herself. Meanwhile, Shido cynically teased Rei, saying that she would be haunted by her actions for the rest of her miserable life. Rei felt her heart stir. Although she wanted to give Shido 1,000 deaths, it all felt pointless. In the end, Rei let her life slip away just like that. After that tense moment, Shido and his students were kicked out of the mansion, leaving them directionless and aimless. Outside, the atmosphere grew even more ominous, with the US president issuing an order to use nuclear weapons to end this horrific pandemic once and for all. Not only the US, but Russia also launched a nuclear attack, and the world seemed to be heading toward total destruction, caught up in a tense missile war. Some Japanese defense operators even managed to destroy nuclear warheads in midair, adding to the drama unfolding. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Shizuka jumped with excitement when she finally remembered her friend's phone number, who was part of the special attack team. With hope, Shizuka called her friend, Rika, and felt relieved when she found out that Rika was still alive. However, before they could talk further, the phone signal suddenly cut off, and they saw a bright blinding light in the sky. Takagi began to suspect something was wrong and asked Rei to check the laser point on her gun, but there seemed to be nothing. Outside, the entire city suddenly went dark. A man collapsed due to a heart attack, and Shido's SUV had a brake failure, causing a massive collision with a tow truck. Back at the mansion, Takagi revealed that the bright light was from a nuclear warhead explosion that had sent an EMP wave across the world, causing most electronic systems to stop working. This meant that everything relying on electricity was now dead, except for the defense forces and government agencies that had implemented anti-EMP measures earlier. When Soichiro appeared, confusion filled his face as he asked how they could save the situation. Takagi calmly told them that some cards could still work if they just replaced the fried parts. Her father couldn't help but praise Takagi for her calm demeanor in handling the crisis. At that moment, the sound of gunfire echoed from the main gate, where a guard was forced to face the attacking zombies. Soichiro quickly ordered his men to close the gate, but before they could do so, one zombie managed to slip inside. Hirano wasn't about to be outdone, so he immediately seized the opportunity to show off his skills, and with one well-aimed shot, the zombie fell. Suddenly, a maid came running with a briefcase in hand, and Yuriko immediately opened it to give her daughter a Luger pistol, an iconic weapon for self-defense. Hirano immediately eyed the legendary gun with curiosity, while Takagi revealed that she didn't even know how to hold it, let alone shoot it. When Takagi asked why Yuriko had a weapon in the first place, Yuriko replied that she had taken self-defense courses while working on Wall Street and might even be a better shooter than Soichiro. Yuriko then asked Hirano to teach Takagi how to shoot, and Hirano eagerly accepted the challenge. However, the situation was becoming more urgent as more zombies gathered at the door and the guards were overwhelmed. When the main gate finally fell, dozens of zombies rushed into the mansion, wreaking havoc on everything in their path. Takashi, Siko, and even Rei immediately jumped into action to reduce the number of zombies, while Hirano provided cover fire from the balcony. Unfortunately, there were too many zombies, and within moments, the Walhold Park was swarming with them. Amid the chaos, the terrified residents sought help. Soichiro, firmly, instructed all the men in the camp to gather and prepare to fight. Takagi quickly suggested barricading the main building, but Soichiro was confident it wouldn't hold for long, given how easily the zombies had broken through the iron gate earlier. When Takashi arrived, Soichiro asked him to look for his parents, and instructed Hirano to watch over his daughter. Takagi disagreed, but her mother slapped her and scolded her not to make things harder, realizing that her parents had already risked their lives to protect her. Finally, Takagi agreed to go with Takashi and the others. As they ran toward the garage, they found that their military jeep had been equipped with anti-EMP measures, and after a few repairs, the jeep would be as good as new. They just needed to guard the garage while Mr. Mado fixed it for them. When they got ready to leave, they asked Mado to join them, but Mado firmly declined, stating that his interests lay elsewhere. With that, Shizuka stepped on the gas and sped past the large house. After driving the jeep through a sea of zombies, the team finally felt safe, and Takashi took the moment to remind them that he and Rei still needed to find their parents. They arrived on a highway that looked like the backdrop from the game Dying Light. Takashi, Siko, and Hirano got ready to step out of the vehicle with weapons drawn, ready to clear the way for their team.